I thought what I'd most like to do is to get to the issues and questions on your minds as rapidly as possible, since you've been kind enough to wait. I thought I'd begin with maybe just a brief history of some of the highlights or milestones of our company that might serve as a backdrop or possibly a source of some areas of question or interest. Some of this will be familiar. I apologize for those of you who might have heard elements of this in the past, so it might be repetitious, but it is true that it was my wife's complaining about doing the bills and the personal finances at home that was the spark of our first business, Quicken. So I set about saying, this seems like a classic kind of entrepreneurial problem. When my wife complained about paying the bills, she was very good at it. There was not a question of quality. She just didn't like doing it. But this sounded like the kind of thing where everybody had to do this, at least in the US. Sounds like there's a problem, at least she had a problem, where you could apply technology to solve it. So that seemed like a business opportunity. So the first thing I did was figure out, well, maybe her situation is not normal. Maybe other people don't have a problem with this, because there's no percentage in trying to solve a problem people don't have. So I got the phone book out and started calling households to understand what they did in their personal finances, what activities, and then how they felt about it. And sure enough, it uncovered that she was not strange. A lot of people had a similar problem. There were competing products on the market, so I figured, okay, this was 1982. A bunch of software had been released in the US, and there were about 24 products already on the market that would do personal finances. We were about the last to enter, not the first. So I bought the market leader, figuring they'd probably have solved the problem. And much to my surprise, they hadn't solved the problem, they made it worse. The problem that I'd heard from my wife and that I'd heard from customers was they don't like doing this. It's why spend time doing routine financial stuff? They'd rather be doing other things. So I tried the market leader, and it made it harder and slower than doing it by hand. But that led to a quandary because it sold reasonably well. Why were people buying it if it actually made the problem worse? So that suggested I didn't understand something. So I had to figure out why were these people using it, why were they buying it, and so of course that company wouldn't give me their mailing list. So I figured a back-end way to do it, which was to contact people in the computer industry and ask them if they had used any of the personal finance products on the market, and if so, then interview them about their experience. And what I quickly learned was two-thirds, about 65% of the people had used or claimed to have used a personal finance software product. And these were people in the personal computer industry. And then I asked, well, do you use it? And 4% said they used it. 65% came in the tent, 4% stayed. That's proof you have a product problem. So then I asked, well, why'd you quit? And they said it's too hard, too slow, too long. So they confirmed what my own independent observation has, that the existing competitors did not solve the problem. They made it worse. So then I hired my co-founder, who I ran into by accident, literally, at Stanford University. I went there to hang posters to advertise, great, cool new product, looking for an engineer to help design and code. And I didn't know where to go at Stanford. So I walked up to a group of students that were studying outside the engineering library, and I told them what I was up to and asked them where to hang the posters, and they told me the various places, and then one of the guys said, hey, well, give me one of those. Well, that turned out to be Tom, which was fortunate because nobody else from Stanford responded, because I was putting the posters up during Hell Week just before finals, so everyone's studying. So Tom turned out to be a gifted, not only a lucky choice, but a gifted choice, because he could internalize our philosophy of solving a specific problem with a tight focus, not measured in number of features, but measured in how well you solve the problem. A problem we were trying to solve is make personal finance chores go fast and easy. So we wound up with a problem, with a product that had very few features compared to the competitors. The competitors had 2 to 4 times more stuff they did than we did. But they were slow and we were fast. That was a struggle. We then went out to get venture capital, having the product halfway built, figuring that would make it easy, and totally struck out. Not a single venture capitalist would back us. And that's a problem. We were in the world headquarters of venture capital. I worked in the building with more venture capitalists in it than any country had, other than the United States. Some of them were classmates from business school. We got turned down by them all. So this was a real problem. We did not have the money to launch. We struggled. I finally convinced 2 wealthy individuals, somewhat wealthy, to invest. I was looking for $2 million in investment. They invested $151,000, a little short of the goal, but it's all I could scrape together. We weren't able to market the product because we didn't have the money to. It was really tough. We later figured out how to sell some to banks. But then I discovered that banks can't sell packages of software. Banks sell services. They don't sell boxes. They don't even know where to put boxes. So they would occasionally put them in the vault. Well, you know how much customer traffic you get in a vault? So banks are great at many things, but selling boxes of packaged software in 1984 is not something they know how to do. So we ran out of money. We had to give back the rented furniture, rented computers. I had to stop paying salaries. There were 7 of us. I had to stop paying salaries. 3 of the folks left. 4 stayed, which is kind of odd since we weren't paying them. One of the people we'd just hired, she'd been with us 2 weeks when I announced we were out of money, and we'd pay her and everyone for the time they'd worked, but we had no money going forward. Years later, I found out she called her dad and said, "Oh, what am I going to do? Oh, I just left my job. I started here, and they're not paying. Oh, this is terrible." I found out her dad said, "You should stay. You gave him your promise you'd work for him." And she did. What about our promise to pay her? So this group of devoted people believed so much in our mission. What we had was, we didn't have money. We didn't have connections. What we had was a belief that we were actually solving the real problem, and no one else was. People hated doing financial work, and we were going to automate it and make it go fast and easy, and that was going to change people's lives for the better. And the team that stayed had real conviction that was right. Otherwise, they wouldn't have stayed. So eventually, word of mouth started kicking in. The banks sold a little bit of software. People started using it. Their friends, they told their friends. The friends started asking about it. We tried a bunch of stuff, but the one thing that worked was producing a product that people were delighted by, that solved the problem better than anybody else. And that converted to word of mouth. And that ultimately, with a few-year lag, converted to sales. Then the business started tripling. We started tripling in size every year. Then we were struggling to keep up. We almost went under. I had borrowed up to the hilt, and then I could finally pay off those loans and get out of debt forever. Then I'll just add a couple more chapters.